Hyperdrive Hockey is brought to you by the Game Over Network. Make sure to follow us on YouTube at Game Over Network and catch Hyperdrive Hockey in audio format on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other good streaming platform. Hello, beautiful citizen of planet hockey, and welcome to another edition of Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network. My name is Max Venot alongside Daphne Malbeuf and Kevin Laramé. We have a lot to talk about this week. We have a lot to talk about today, but before we do so, please, if it's not done yet, consider subscribing to the Game Over Network YouTube channel. Drop a like, drop a comment, let us know what you thought about the debates, about the hockey talk in this episode. And if you prefer audio format, well, consider dropping a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon Podcasts. A big week of hockey, and we are happy to talk about it with you. Daphne Malbeuf, how are you doing?
Very good, Max, and you?
I'm doing great.
At least we don't have much drama to talk about, and I'm a little bit sad about it. But
yeah, that's a bit boring. It's kind of boring. You're in some cream colors today. I dig it. I almost feel like are you in Florida? Are you a snowbird or something? And I don't know.
I would love to. Not yet. I'm not.
Not yet, because you're going?
Yeah, I'm going.
Oh my God.
During the holidays.
Oh, come on.
No, but it's sunny outside, so I felt like, throwing a little bit of my spring clothes just to feel like it's not December 13th.
I dig it. Kev, how are you doing, my man?
Doing pretty good. Christmas shopping almost done. Looking forward to
I haven't even started here.
Yeah. So I used to be like that. I used to not start, but I didn't have a driver's license before the last 9 months. So now I actually can take the car. I can go do stuff, and it makes it a lot easier to go shopping. Actually, so there's that. I'm actually organized this year.
That's beautiful. And for those who don't know, Kevin Laramé is not 16 years old. No, it's not that he just got his driving license. It's not that he could just had it. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about today. JT Miller is back in Vancouver. Canucks fans are going to be very happy about it. Auston Matthews, what the heck is going on? Meanwhile, did Sheldon Keefe completely jinx Leafs goaltending? We will talk about that. And as we do on every Friday episode, we will have our Not Even Sorry segment where we debate the hottest things in hockey. And we welcome from Game Over Ottawa Michael Char later on in the show. But first, let's talk about that governor's meeting that took place, because there were a lot of things coming out of it. Well, first and foremost, let's just start. We kind of knew that this was going to be coming, but again, the confirmation that the cap keeps rising. The COVID really is behind us. Those years of stagnation are done, which caused a lot of arms to a lot of teams who had big contracts. And now I think that we're going to start seeing GMs maybe not spending more, but being more willing to spend on different types of players. Because that stagnation really, a lot of people, it kind of became the narrative that you can't win with top dog players on top salaries, but it was really a produce of the stagnation of the cap, because when you sign a player, whether it's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Nathan MacKinnon, to a huge contract for a long time, it becomes progressively a more valuable contract to the team. And we lost that for a few years. Cap will go at the very least up by another $4.4 million next year, maybe more. That was very interesting in what Gary Bettman said.
Yeah, it's just like, it feels like it would be interesting to see what we prioritize, but to see the raise of this cap getting higher, I don't know. Are you surprised? Because we've talked about it and we were like, maybe it's kind of not the solution, but, with the salaries getting higher and higher, maybe it's time that we are getting the salary cap higher. I don't know.
Here's where I'm surprised is that he didn't hesitate to say that it's at 88 right now. He didn't hesitate to say that the 92.4 million figure he gave it could be higher. And this is where it's interesting. This is where it's going to be very interesting for the players. I think that there are two types of teams that will be at an advantage with this. It's number one, teams who do have a superstar player on big money. Leon Draisaitl just signed a gargantuous contract. Mikko Rantanen apparently is looking for huge money next summer. Of course, Connor McDavid will have to sign for big money in 2026. That is when the collective bargaining agreement ends, by the way. So I think those teams will be at an advantage, but also teams like, I don't know, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Montreal Canadiens are kind of in this situation right now. Teams who have lots of good players, not superstar level players, who have lots of players in the 7-8 million range. I think those teams too could be at an advantage with this salary cap rising.
I think too. And maybe we won't see so much players on the LTIR list until the playoffs.
Oh, that is interesting. And I was surprised to say that. So Gary Bettman said two things. He said there could be scheduling change. That to me is, well, I hope I'm not going to be disappointed. I was going to say it's good news. I guess it depends. Elliot Freeman reported that both league and players are not against 84 games. I'm against it personally, but hey, what the heck do I know? But also, I was surprised that he did mention that not the LTIR per se, but the presence of a salary cap in the playoffs could be in the discussion for the next CBA. Now, for those who are not familiar, no, there is no salary cap in the playoffs. First of all, players are not paid during the playoffs, and there is no salary cap. So that's why when you hear about LTIR, that allows team to bring in player, what the Vegas Golden Knights have been doing, what Tampa did in 2021 with Nikita Kucherov, when you hear that a team is over the cap in the playoff, that's what it means. It doesn't matter anymore. And that, to me, is something that does need to be looked into. How, though, I don't know. Because it's always been said, Daph and Kev, that GMs are reluctant to bring it up because they never know when they will be the team that will need that. Now that some have done it, won cups because of it, they're like, well, maybe in 2 years, I'm the one who will need that LTIR money. But I do think it's a problem. I don't know what the solution is, but I do think it's a problem.
And you're right. And one of the solution who was reported by Elliot Freeman is that, we kind of can have a postseason limit. So it would be like not a whole like cap, but in-game roster has to be under the cap. And I feel like maybe it's kind of part of the solution here.
The team on the ice, basically.
Because it can be unfair for a lot of teams. Can be. Because if you don't have players on the long injury list, or you don't have the cap space to do like some moves around March, then there's a lot of disadvantage for a lot of teams.
There are, and I'm curious to see if it will ever come up. What bothers a lot of fans, but doesn't seem to bother teams as much, is the no tax states. And right now, so the last the 3 Stanley Cup champions are from no tax states. So you had the back-to-back. Not the last 3. I'm sorry, 3 of the last 4, because you had back-to-back Lightning. You had Vegas and you had Florida, and Colorado came in this. But so in Nevada and Florida, there are no states taxes. I think a lot of the anger towards this is that it's non-traditional market. They're not traditionally the teams that bring in the big money, but they are the one that benefit from it. I think it's a very complicated situation. I don't even know how you make that problem go away, personally.
Yeah, and with this solution, with that being said, having a postseason limit on the roster that you're bringing to the game, the only concern about voting about this is no one wants to be the guy who's sitting because the team has to make like some management under the cap. So that is another very logistical problem there.
Yeah, no, that would be interesting to see. Like, you remember in 2018 when the Vegas Golden Knights paid a big price to get Tomas Tatar from the Red Wings, and he started the playoff, but he ended up barely even playing in the playoffs. Unfortunately, Tatar later had a reputation of not being a playoff player because he was sat during Montreal's push for the Stanley Cup in 2021.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're a rental player with a no, you have teams on your no trade, and you know that on that team you might be more of a bobble player at the very least. Like you're like, oh, wait a minute, how that maybe there would be maybe more strategy even from the player standpoint come trade deadline and stuff like this. That's actually very interesting.
It's like playing a House of Cards or Monopoly.
Oh, I love it. I'm digging it. Okay. There will be changes. There are changes every CBA. So Kevin, Daph, and me, we're all brought a change that we would like to see in the NHL comes the next CBA. There are a lot, personally, I want to see. But the number one for me would have been the replay issue. But I feel like we've talked about it a lot in the past couple of weeks. So I'm going to let that aside. I think you guys know what I think about this. I think it should be a minute and a half, whatever. And after that, there is a buzzer. If there is no evidence, you move on. But since we've talked about Gary Bettman has talked about schedule. I would love to see rivalry weeks in the NHL. You plan them in the season and you have rivalry weeks, and you have them 2-3 times a season. I don't know. And it's in those weeks that you play all of your back-to-backs. You play them against a rival. It can be a traditional rival like Boston, Montreal, I don't know, the Alberta Battle, whatever. But it can also be.
I would love to see more recent ones.
Exactly. It can be like if I don't know, like right now, the two best team in the league for a while or in the division for a while are the Stars and the Avalanche. You put them against each other. I do understand though that maybe this creates some disparity, but at the same time, no, because you just take the game they would play and you put them together in a week, and this is where you play all of your back-to-backs. This is where you play the back-to-backs. It would create local engagement, it would create league-wide entertainment, and you place those in 2-3 times during the season, I'm sorry, and this is where I would love to see some rivalry games. There are not enough rivalries anymore.
No.
With the schedule the way it's made, totally. Montreal doesn't play Boston enough, and I understand that you do want, let's say, Connor McDavid in every arena in the league. It's normal. But I do feel like by placing those weeks, at the very least, you might not see Boston as much, but at the very least, you would be entertained. You would know it's coming. It's finally here. It's the time of the year they're playing. The Boston Bruins, two back-and-back. That would be beautiful. Count me in on it.
Yeah, and from a marketing standpoint, and in a way that I feel like the NHL needs to innovate, it would be good. I don't know if it's going to be like a headache for the scheduling and whatever, but I would really love to see this. Are we not worried about the possibilities of injury because of those rivalry, though?
You mean like because it's going to be more intense?
Yeah, more physical?
Yeah, like playoff style.
Maybe it's a way to hype the league in November and December when it becomes the law, right? Because if you look at the ratings of the NHL, it starts hot, then so October, November it starts hot, then December, January actually drops down, and it picks back up mid to late February. So maybe that's a way to hype up the league the way the NBA Cup hypes up the NBA in the non-important time of the year. Maybe that's when you have your rivalries, and you guys spoke about unnatural rivalries that I want to see. I want to see Colorado face Edmonton a couple times back to back. Those two teams.
Yeah, exactly.
So that would be great. Like McKinnon versus McDavid, the Mech rivalry in the week. Those type of things that could be fun.
Top players.
No, I completely agree. Completely agree with that. I would not be worried about injuries personally. I had time to think that while Kevin was talking. It's a good question. I mean, it's physical. It's whenever the rivals play each other, they already hate each other. So and it's 2 games. So, but it's a good question. It's a fair question. I personally would not be worried about it. Daph, what would you change to the NHL?
Okay, I would love. We've been talking about playoffs format for a while now, and I really feel that we could look at what the NBA did with the play-in, and I feel that this is where we should head because it had a lot of upsets in the NBA in the last few years. 2 years ago, the Miami Heat entered in the playoffs, playing in the play-in tournament. and they got to the final. So it really had an impact. And regarding all the parity that we are having in the last couple of seasons, I feel that this could be one of the solution. People who are not familiar with the format, it's really interesting. It's in the East and in the Western Conference, we are taking the standings, and the 7th to the 8th to the 10th seed are playing against each other. So 7th and 8th position are playing game. The winner of this game is qualified as the 7th seed for the playoffs. Then the 9th and the 10th teams are playing against each other. The winner takes the loser of the 7th and 8th game.
Yeah.
And the winner of this game is qualified as the 8th seed for the playoffs. And I really feel that these could be interesting games, and it would be a way to make also every game really significant during the season.
Just like Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, I feel like I'm being torn apart, Daph. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with the play-in in the NBA, because I hated the idea at first. I thought it was dumb. I'm like, you play in the NBA just like in the NHL, you play an 82-game season. And you're telling me that after 82 games, I beat another team fair and square over 82 games, but now I have to go play against them to get the spot? So that was my thinking at first. Then I started watching the play-in, and it was quite some fun. Quite a lot of fun. But I still believe that after an 82-game marathon, you should have an advantage. And this is where I think the NBA did right. There is an advantage. If you finish 7, you have to lose 2 games to get out. Yes. If you finish the 9th or 10th, you have to win 2 games to get in. Same thing with 8th position. You have to lose 2 games to get out. So it actually is quite an interesting way of doing things.
I think the format is fair.
I am not against it. I am not against it. I don't know about you, Kev, but I could be convinced.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with the playing aspect, because let's face it, the more teams that are involved in getting in, and I'm putting my business cap on right now, the more teams that are involved to getting in, the more you can milk the attention of the fan base for a few, I guess about 1 week more. But 1 week more, it makes a big difference. At least some fan base that are not necessarily used to having meaningful games in March and April will have them. And I would even add like a goal differential thing to that. Like, okay, if your goal differential is this or that, you get like, just so that it makes it fun. Like, we're bringing back to the NBA here for a second, the NBA Cup, when it becomes the last of the group stage. I've talked about this in the other show, but it made me really enjoy the fact that a team has to put it on the other team. We need to score more just because we're trailing in our differential, or something similar, at least a connotation that a team has a couple ways in or a couple ways out of the playoffs.
Yeah, and from a business perspective, this is it. Like for the fans, for the business side, it feels like a win-win for everybody. And it feels like it gets a little bit of the sentiment of the competition until the very end of the season, also for the players.
I feel like business-wise, there is no counter-argument. To be honest with you guys, you two have fair points. I agree. And, like there are years, like last year would have been perfect. Like the way it ended with the Washington Capitals and the Detroit Red Wing and the Philadelphia Flyers, the goalie being pulled out, Torts saying he had no idea he was eliminated anyway, Detroit being eliminated. Like the drama would have continued. And you know what? Count me in.
Yeah, he's in.
Count me in.
He's in for the play.
My boomer take is out. I'm in. I'm all in for new and good ideas. Kev, what would you bring to the NHL?
I'm gonna go a bit more rule focused, and I will bring it back a little bit more than a decade ago and get rid of what is known as the Brodeur rule. I would reinstate the possibility for a goalie control the puck outside of the trapezoid behind the net. You can see on your screen right now. If you're new to hockey or if you're just discovering, you used to be able to touch the puck anywhere for a goalie to control some part of the play. Usually it was used when there's an icing and the goalie would get the puck, slow down the play, feed it to his defenseman. and it was to generate more offense. Now the offense has been there. We have one of the highest scoring hockey, I would say, style of play from a long time. It's not quite the 80s yet. That's because goalies can goal now. They know how to stop pucks. Go back and watch in 81. Goalies didn't even know you could go on the ice. But now I think if you bring back that skill that it seems to have been lost by most of the goalies to not just use it defensively, but to me it actually be used offensively, because we have now 3-on-3 overtime. And that would make a big difference. The goalie can become the fourth player. Getting that puck gets a chance to the attackers to position themselves a bit better in the neutral zone. There's no two-line passes anymore, and you can help that way. I think it's a combination of that. Now that there's no more two-line passes, if the goalie can actually handle the puck better, would give an advantage to the goalie that have a good puck handling skills, and will bring back some of the fun aspect of the game that if you have a goalie like Carey Price or Martin Brodeur that knew how to control that puck properly, you could use that advantage. And it will showcase goalies that don't have that and they give an advantage. I'm not saying going all the way back and defensively it might hurt, but I think where the game is now, it's a bit of a moot rule.
Yeah, you mentioned Carey Price, you mentioned Martin Brodeur. Mike Smith was lethal on that deep pass you talked about. Mike Smith was absolutely a beauty on the bomb of a pass, and that would have been interesting if he could have gone into the corner.
Yeah, and I feel like the goalies also will be eager for it. Like,
they're more
involved. They like having a challenge, and of course, Max, you're with it because you're for everything that brings power to goalies, right?
I'm not. Here's the thing. I'm not against it. I'm neither against or for it. I remember when it came. So I don't want to make us feel old, Kev, but it's actually two decades in now. It was in 0506.
I feel old.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no, it happens all the time. Yeah, that was 3 years ago. Yeah, no, that was 10 years ago, buddy. Yeah. When it was, brought in, I thought that was dumb. And I didn't even understand the argument that it would bring more goals, because I was like, I feel like it's the opposite. Like, yes, Martin Brodeur was so good behind his net that he could, counterattack quicker. And yet, yes, for the Devils back then, it was a good weapon. But I feel like overall, I have no math on this, but my eye test was, I feel like this is going to lessen the amount of goals. But anyways, it's been so long now that I don't know. Like, you're making some very good points, Kev. I'm just like, I would be curious to see it. Like, if it would change anything. And it's a good argument about bringing back the skills of goalie to play the puck.
And in general, I'm more of a less rule is better than more rule, meaning that if you gain an advantage on the ice by doing something that is part of the game, you shouldn't be penalized for it. And I think it would rethink some of the defensive play, offensive play, just to play systems too. It would help some certain concepts. So I'm always I'm on the coach side, where if you know how to break down the game, you shouldn't be penalized by rules that are put in to negate what you do well.
Less rule is better than more rule. And now suddenly I have an image of my friend Kevin Laramie as a pirate or as a cowboy. I want to see it now.
Actually, it would be a knight back in 1400 years ago, so like in the middle of France in the 700s, my family were knights.
Technically, knights were working
Pirates.
For the kings, so
True,
they
true.
were for.
Okay, yeah.
They were for rules, no?
True.
I don't know.
I guess so. Yeah,
you would be an unknighted knight, like a rogue knight.
I would be like
a sword for hire. You would be a sword for hire.
There you go. That would be a mercenary.
Wow. In Game of Thrones, that's what you would be. All right, this will be it for what we would change to the NHL. What would you change to the NHL? Let us know in the comments. The CBA will be renewed for the 2026-2027 season. I feel like we just changed the league right here. Like, all they have to do is listen to us, and they will have a better NHL. All right, now let's go coast to coast.
Max, good news for the Canucks after getting Thatcher Demko back. JT Miller finally played his first game in nearly a month after returning from personal leave. He had missed the past 10 games, and he looked quite okay and quite good in the win for the Canucks against the Panthers yesterday.
Yeah, and JT Miller refused to go anything into why he was out. We knew it was for personal reason. That is right. Tons of rumors circulated. Personally, I'm going to respect the guy's demands that we don't go into it. JT Miller is such an important part of the Canucks. Honestly, absolutely. I know Quinn Hughes, the captain. I know Elias Peterson's the guy with the gigantic contract and probably the most pure talent. I've always felt like JT Miller is the glue. Could be wrong on this. I was really surprised when he left for a month. So like I said, we don't know if it's, was it anything regarding the team or not? We don't know. I hope not only that he is back, but he is back in a good state of mind. And we've talked about it earlier on this pod. The Canucks being where they are in the standing without Thatcher Demko for the entire season, without JT Miller for most of the season, I feel like the Vancouver Canucks facing adversity early on can only benefit them and will lead them towards the playoff.
Yeah, and just by the way, he was, like when you're out of the lineup for such a long time, you just don't want to screw up when you get back. But I feel like he was really good. It was a solid effort. Of course, he didn't play a ton, but that would just this is just how Rick Tocchet wanted to manage his return. And I feel like the Canucks are on their way with Demko back and JT Miller. Talking about returning from injuries, what's up with Auston Matthews, Max? Because we are seeing this and we're like, okay, he needs to score more. And Craig Berube said he needs to score more. We need him to produce, and he will. So he better do.
Auston Matthews currently on pace for less than 40 goals over the course of I was going to say a full season, not even a full season, because he did hit 40 goal season in 2020, 2021, the shortened year. He has not scored less than 40 goals since 2018, 2019. As a matter of fact, the only two times he has not hit 40 goals in his NHL career were the two seasons where he played less than 70 games in 17-18 and 18-19. He is at less than a point per game. We're not talking about a slump at this point in the season. We're talking about a possible down year for Auston Matthews. And honestly, I am quite surprised by it. I get it, he was injured. I get it, he went to Germany to get his injury checked. So maybe it's something serious. But who was it? I think it's Scott Wheeler that tweeted the other day. It feels like more plays goes to die on his stick than they usually do. And I kind of agree with it. But here's the weird thing. He hit 60. He had a down year, quotation mark, because by his standard, 40 goal, 85 point in 22-23 was a down year. Then he bounces back with 69 last year. Is it just a thing for Auston Matthews? Is he going to go like roller coaster, a huge year, a slow year, or a huge? I don't know, but I do. He's one of the most exciting players in the NHL. I think that he is now the new Ovi in the sense that he is the bona fide, the top dog goal scorer in the league. And I do hope he finds his groove back, because the league is more interesting to watch, in my point of view, when Auston Matthews is firing it up.
And it's not
but of course.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, it's not like he's not even trying, right? 6 shots last night, and there's a lot that he's doing that it feels like he's trying to score goals. But I'm almost thinking at this point, is it the system of a Craig Berube that's not necessarily made to highlight Matthews himself, but to highlight maybe more the wingers, or maybe does he buy into the system of a Craig Berube?
That's interesting.
So maybe there's it's an hypothesis at this point. I don't have an answer, but we're December now, and yes, he had the injury, but before the injury, he was also we talked on the show where episode number 20, probably in episode number 3 or 4, we talked about Matthews and his offensive slump. So I think maybe there's something to look at in the system and see if there's anything that changes.
At least, the rest of the team is doing good, but the Leafs will need their captain to start scoring again if they want to do well. And if they want to be real contenders this season, at least they have really good goaltending. And this is a really good situation for Toronto. And who said that, Max? Look no further than their ex-coach, Sheldon Keefe, who gave everything to those two goalies, Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Woll. It's like seeing an ex-lover, like with a way better partner, and you're just like, yeah, they're good.
Was he playing some mind game? I don't know, but my man completely jinxed poor Anthony Stolarz, who got injured Thursday night. At the moment we are recording this podcast, we don't have an official word yet out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. The early reports indicate that it might not be a serious injury. Important to note that the Leafs just called back Dennis Hildeby from the Marlies on an emergency basis. So probably a bit more scared than real harm for Anthony Stolarz. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. And honestly, respect to Anthony Stolarz, even respect to Woll. Both of them are playing very, very good. Is Connor Hellebuck not in the NHL anymore? Has Connor Hellebuck gone to space? What is going on here? Is Lucas Dostal not like the backbone of a very bad Anaheim Ducks team? The best goaltending in the NHL? Come on, Sheldon Keefe. I know what you were doing here. You were just trying to play in the Leafs' head and their Habs and their fans' head. You were trying to say, I never had that type of goaltending when you were playing Mind's game. Like, my respect to those goalies, they're playing very good. Best in the league. Look at number 37 in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and maybe it's because we're not surprised by the tenure of Hellebuck anymore, and we're looking at this duo, and we're like, okay, both of them are in the top 5 for the save percentage, goals against average, and this is not usual in Toronto. So maybe this is why he said what he said, but maybe he was playing mind games also. Maybe.
He was.
He was. Are you confident that Joseph Woll, though, can handle, increased workload following this injury?
I think so, because Woll's problem has been injuries.
Yeah.
But from a performance perspective, I always thought he was an interesting prospect for the Leafs, and I've seen him as the goalie of the future. But Stolarz has been way more than, the Leafs were expecting something good out of him. That's why they brought him out of Florida. He was the best backup in the league in Florida last season, but it's a big step at this point in his career also to take a bigger load. He has been stellar. He has been nothing short of stellar. I do think Woll can, and this is what is beautiful between these two. It's kind of like a Swayman Ullmark light. I insist on light in a way that both of them were pushing each other upward. And I do believe that maybe Woll can do that while Stolarz is injured, no matter how long he is.
Yeah, and he proved last season that he could take games back to back, and he could handle the workload. We were talking about Trevor Zegras, and now, Max, we know how much time he will miss for the Ducks.
I feel like, is it only me, or I feel like 6 weeks is kind of like a good case scenario for the Ducks?
It's less time that we maybe anticipated, because he went under surgery. So
yeah, and not only that, but I don't know about you guys, but whenever I see a non-contact injury like this, I'm like, this is bad. It's not just it has to be something that popped or ripped or whatever. So I thought he was done for the season, to be honest. Now I'm going to have to look at my pool. 6 weeks is still a long time. I have it in my pool. I thought now I'm going to have to mix something up here. But I feel like it's a good case scenario for the Ducks.
Good case scenario, or can they still thinking about, making a trade with him now that he was injured?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. That's a good point, though. That is a very valid point, because if he had kept the pace that he had finally found, if in a few games pre-injury, and had gone on a very decent 20-25 game stretch where he is maybe not a point per game player, but close to, or 20 points or whatever, now maybe he finds some of that value back and you can trade him at a higher value. Now, effectively, the last taste you have in your mouth of Trevor Zegras is still what you've seen for the past year. Now, I will say a year and not quite half. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe now you still can't get more value on Trevor Zegras until maybe another season. Another like, unless no, he could in the summer if he has a good end of the year. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Daph.
Yeah, but depending on what the scenario in the head of the management was, I don't know. We don't know, but maybe it's not that good of news. And I just want to close out, Max, with I don't know if you saw Patrick Roy, just like
I did.
He was furious after the New York Islanders nearly blew a 4-goals lead in the third period yesterday, and Patrick Roy just defended his goalie. It was like, okay, a win is a win. But the Islanders were outshooted 14-7 over the final 20 minutes. And Patrick Roy said, if it was me, I wouldn't have been very gracious. Do you agree with him? And do you agree that he took his Sorokin's back, even if it was a win?
I love that he took his goalies back. I thought that was amazing. I think it's really cool having, I was going to say a former goalie, having the GOAT goalie head coach there. I said it. I think Patrick Roy is the GOAT. Number one, it's good that we don't necessarily handle problems as men the way Patrick Roy would have handled it back then. I'm just saying this is
Which
not
is breaking a stick.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Anger management is not necessarily a bad thing, people. With that being said, he is 100% right. He is 100. You cannot, and you know, I saw a stat pass earlier this morning before we recorded. So NHL teams so far this season, in games that they have chased the other goalie, the other team's goalie, have ended up losing 6 games, despite the fact that they have chased the other team's goalie. 4 of those games were lost by the Buffalo Sabres. So the Buffalo Sabres keep losing leads. You do not want to be that team. No. And you especially don't want to be that team if you're the Islanders that do that to the, lowly Chicago Blackhawks. So yeah, it is protecting leads is important. It's part of what makes a good team a great team. And he was right to be angry. He was right to say it. And more importantly, he was so right in backing up Ilya Sorokin.
And it was just a global message to the whole team for next time. So this is good. We are going to get to our now famously segment, Not Even Sorry. And this week we are joined by Michael Charles of Overgame Ottawa. I'm wondering if he's going to uplift the Ottawa Senators or...
And we are now ready for our hottest segment of the day. We will not be sorry. And I feel like we're gonna mean it today because, I've already some of the things that are coming. And, oh, man, I would be throwing punches if we were face to face. We are not, though. And we are joined today from Game Over Ottawa with Michael Char, who is here with us today. Michael rocking his Sens gear. Wow, he's all in. He's all in on the Sens gear. Michael, how are you doing? Thank you so much for joining the show.
Doing good. Back to morning content, which is always good for me, man. I always have to adjust being back to a morning person, but aside from that, I'm all in. And hey, if there's one thing I love doing, I love yapping about hockey. So give me the opportunity, I'll say yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. This is what we do here. And as someone who did night radio for a while, I can understand the problems of getting back to morning content. So you might now be familiar with the drill. If you are not, this is the moment where we will be debating. Daph, Kevin, and Mike will all bring a statement. They can uplift whatever they want in hockey world, or they can throw under the bus. And we will start today with Daph. I want to hear if you are uplifting or throwing under the bus, Daph, today.
I'm throwing under the bus, but for a very good reason, guys. Oh. I think international play in the age of the PWHL, it needs to be rethinking about. I feel it's slowing the momentum. And we are looking at this and we're like, okay, we are 10 days in the season. The fans have been waiting a long time. They've been waiting for 6 months. And then after 10 days in the season, we're in a pause, a break for the Women's Euro Hockey Tour, which is Switzerland, Czechia, Sweden, and Finland. And a lot of the players in the PWHL won't be attending this tournament. So we are wondering, like, why do we have it? And I feel like it just, we've talked about how the second season will be important to just capitalize on all the momentum that we had for the first season. And it feels like a break after 10 days. It just feels wrong. It just feels wrong. And I don't know for you guys, I see you, Mike, you are reacting to this, but for me, it's just like, why are we bothering with this? I know that we need to grow the game somewhere else than in North America, but it just feels wrong after 10 days.
Yeah, as long as you don't mind me stepping in, I can totally see that frustration. It just it's that classic issue of the scheduling not really making a lot of sense. I can kind of see why, just because the international play has existed for so much longer than obviously the PWHL has.
Yeah.
But so much of the focus has been on growing the PWHL to an extent where, you have consistent fans the same way you do with the NHL. And yeah, just having, so early on in the season, a lot of the players have to go for basically like an international break. I can totally see that frustration. Now, I'm not going to act as if I am like, as dedicated a PWHL fan as I am an NHL fan. Unfortunately, with my hobbies, I just unfortunately don't have the time to watch it as much as I wish I could. But I could totally see that annoyance in a way where, sorry to, in my case, pull it back to things I can relate to. But it's the same issue that
totally.
like other teams have when, for example, if they're hosting an event or if there's some other event beyond their control going on, they have to lose players. So, for example, or lose an advantage. So obviously in the Sens' case, because obviously I will bring it back to the Sens, we have this upcoming road trip because of the World Juniors. The World Juniors is happening in Ottawa. The CTC obviously is going to be used as the arena, which means that the Sens are going to have to go on this extended road trip over the Christmas break. And the Sens, especially in recent years, have been quite a bad road team. So it affects them in that sense, where I can totally see the fan perspective in the PWHL of like, we really want to see our teams, the teams that just got named, the teams with these players that we're now getting accustomed to, these star players, and now we have to kind of put it on pause because the international play just happens to be coinciding early on in the season. So I can just see that frustration. I guess in that way I am also putting it down, and I don't think it's that crazy of a thing to fix. I think this probably is likely going to be a 1 to 2 year problem where they'll realize their mistakes and probably adjust. But it's crazy I didn't think of this ahead of time, especially with how much they do want to grow the PWHL.
Yeah, Kevin, I know you have a soccer background, and it's something that is normal in soccer because international competition.
Yeah.
Well, soccer is much bigger, actually, so it might be a bad comparison here. But I'm just curious to hear you because you have that standpoint, you have that point of view, Kev, from someone who works in soccer too.
It's normal, but it's also annoying. Nothing annoys me more every year than the international break during MLS Cup playoffs. There's like two that are always weirdly timed. It's just, you start the playoffs 2 weeks in, oh yeah, we're breaking for 14 days. That just kills the momentum. And I think there's a possibility that it does the same for the PWHL. Teams were momentum, like literally on the ice. Some teams were having a good beginning of the season. And then there's the international break, and you have the chance of losing that momentum. Some teams are losing players going abroad. There's always a possibility of injuries. But to me, it's just the momentum for the growth of the game. And there's a long period of time in the year where there's no PWHL. So maybe that can be moved just to fit in that calendar a bit better.
Yeah, totally. It's just like when you're in a position where you're trying to secure and retain that fan base. And for me, in this one, the fans are the ones that are losing on the end of that break. It's just like it just doesn't feel right.
And there's so much competition for the eyeballs, right? The sports fans, or even just fans of anything in particular, because when we're talking about sports, it's not just sports that are the competitors. You also have movies, TV shows, Netflix. All those things can draw the attention. And if you give people a little window of, okay, you don't need to pay attention to us for 14 days, some people will take a month before they come back. So you lose all of the eyeballs, and the the habit of tuning in, which is also something that is very important for
You want it to be a cycle.
Yeah, exactly. For the broadcasters, it's important for them to create that habit of tuning in. If you're looking at like Amazon Prime, which is in the PWHL, also very involved in the broadcasts, it's important for them. Every Monday, we know there's hockey on the NHL. So you want to create those habits, and that lull actually doesn't help that.
And if the international play was at the cornerstone, like for the women's hockey for decades, I know that, like abandoning it would be unwise for the global growth of the game. But if you're international hockey,
that's true.
You also know the importance of gaining on that momentum and just like being able to compromise a little bit.
Mike, you wanted to add?
Just a short little thing. I just think it's funny because I'm just realizing that I've had this conversation a lot with a very different topic. I'm not going to go super into depth to it because I know this probably isn't an audience that would be too interested in it. You're focused on hockey. But I'm an esports journalist. I've been for about 5 to 6 years now. And so many of these arguments, I've been just like, yeah, I know this. I know this problem because the exact same thing happens in esports. More so with scheduling than anything else. For example, the game that I follow the most, that I play a lot of, and that I've written a lot of recently has been called Valorant. You don't need to know what it's about. It's a tactical shooter. Long story short, the problem with the last 2 years in it is that it's become a franchise league, very much like the PWHL, where you now have teams that have bought in and, are now getting a lot of notoriety, great rosters, recognizable players. And then the season ends in August and doesn't start till February. So you have this 8-month period of like everyone's invested, everyone's in, there's constant events, and then there's this off season that, like ruins players' hopes of getting teams because they'll get dropped, they'll get, it'll leave them in poor situations. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but that's why I tend to agree with this so much, because so much can revolve around scheduling, just scheduling alone. And I can totally see the weaknesses of that.
No, you are right. And personally, I'm always excited at the start of a Formula One season, and then I'm done by the time autumn comes because I'm like, this is still going on. It's been going on since March, and now it's ending at the start of December. That's too long. With that being said, I agree with Daph. I'm completely behind you. It is, in the wise words of the American Idol, Kelly Clarkson, out of sight, out of mind. And that is a problem. Mike, you are, of course, rocking the Ottawa Senators cap. It's a nice cap, by the way. Are you uplifting? Are you throwing under the bus? Are you going with the Sens? Are you going elsewhere? The floor is yours, my man.
I'm going to uplift. And of course, I'm going to talk about the Sens. I need an opportunity to. And my uplift is going to be a relatively simple one, something that the Sens have either haven't had ever or definitely haven't had in a long time. My uplifting kind of statement, my little bit of a hot take, is that Tim Stützle is going to hit 100 points this season. And I don't even think it's debate. I think it's just going to be a fact. Obviously, I know not everyone here has to be someone who watches the Sens every game, but even without talking about stats, even just talking about eye test, the same ways you can look at other players that just know that they're going to be like either great in the future or they're having a great season. Tim Stützle, especially this like 10-game stretch he's been on, has been kind of crazy. One of the most notable things is that he's had 3 back-to-back 2-assist games. He's had 6 points in 3 games, 2 assists, 2 assists, 2 assists. Obviously, the Sens have been on a good run recently, especially with Ullmark in net. But if you want to look at Tim Stützle's stats, I think it's fair to say, if you look at his projections in a sense of just taking the stats he's had in his games and projecting it forwards, he's on pace to hit 105 points this season. Already. He's at 36 points in 28 games. He's already hit 10 goals, something that he struggled with last season. He didn't hit 10 goals till like more than halfway through the year, I remember. For the first time in a significant time, he's more than a chunk of the way through the season, and he's a positive plus-minus player. I know plus-minus is a little bit skewed. It's not always exactly the best stat to rely on, but I think in Stützle's case, as someone who's always been a negative plus-minus character, it really shows he's grown in his two-way game. And more than anything, Stützle has just been like a dominant force. And this is also included with him being moved from effectively the first line to the second line. That's another thing people have been kind of like, not forgetting, but something that's kind of been under the radar for Stützle. He was like permanently on the first line all this year. And obviously he's going to get your PP one time. He's going to be a key player in a lot of roles. But with the line shakeups that happened after the Sens lost to Vancouver earlier in the season, which could have been like a bad turning point for the year, we've reverted to 2020, where we have Kachuk, Norris, Batherson as our first line, and then we have Stützle on the second line with a different player. In this case, it's Giroux and Adam Gaudette, who's also having a bit of a crazy year. And Stützle is just benefiting from it, having not only Giroux, a great playmaker in his merit on his wing, but also a pure goal scorer in Adam Gaudette. That Stützle, a guy who sometimes has this tendency where he doesn't want to shoot, just a great player to match him with. And obviously, this is all barring injury. We all have to talk about, if he gets injured, obviously this doesn't make sense. But in my mind, Stützle is playing the kind of game, and he's physical in a new way, where, yes, he might be in more board battles, but he's flying. And as long as he doesn't get injured, which, at least in my view, it doesn't look like he is at all. Watch him get injured now that I said this. He's going to hit 100 points as long as he's healthy. And I don't think it's really a debate.
Just before passing the puck to Daf, just for historical lessons, he would be the third cent to hit a 100-point mark.
Yes, I don't think he's the first. I think Heatley did.
Heatley did it twice in 05-06 and 06-07, and Alfredson did it in 05-06 too on the famous pizza line that was honored in Ottawa a week ago.
Yes, on the 5th. That was a great little ceremony.
Daf, do you think Tim Stützle can do it?
Yeah, it's hardly debatable because he's healthy, he's happy, and he's worth the price of admission. He became the top center of this team. And what's really just interests me in his game is what you said, Mike, is he has become, first of all, he became to a maturity level as desired. We've been talking about this, and I feel like this year he stopped it, and he became a 200-foot player. Like he really, really improved his game, and I think this is why we can say he's gonna top the 100 points this season. He came near 2 years ago with 90 points, so it's hard to say he won't do it. Unless he's not healthy, but let's not jinx that.
Yeah.
Kev, be the adult in the room here. Bring everybody back on hurt, please. Be the great that I know you can be.
Well,
punch me in the face.
The caveat is to me it all depends on Adam Gaudette's production. Adam Gaudette right now,
I can see that too. Yeah.
Right now, he's in top 3 in the NHL for shooting percentage for players that play more than 15 games. So that tells me that, yes,
it's going to drop a little.
Exactly.
Probably.
There will be a regression over the next few months, and that will be, to me, the key to see if Stützle gets there, because he'll get there if Gaudette gets the goal and he gets the assist. To me, that will be the caveat. If he gets 95 or 105, that will be the difference.
Yeah. But counterpoint, 13 of Stützle's points, so a third of his points have been on the power play, where Gaudette is not part of the first unit. He's part of the second unit. So, yes, you are right. It's likely that, a lot of the points he's getting playing alongside Gaudette comes from Gaudette being, let's just say, the second coming of, wasn't it like Marchenko in Columbus, who had near 30 goals and less than 10 assists? There was some sort of crazy stat line I remember from a couple of years ago. Gaudette kind of having that kind of season. But at the same time, especially watching Stützle play, it's one of those things where, yes, it does matter who he plays alongside, but there's also the element of he's driving the line single-handedly. And it makes sense, too, considering Giroux is not the fastest. I remember there was that stat, I think it was Jay Fresh tweeted, where it's like Giroux's foot speed has really declined, and yet his defensive game has gone up, and his production has still been okay, considering, his age and his contract. And part of it's just because he's playing with, basically our best center.
Yeah, I also think Giroux is really amazing in positioning. He reminds me of at his age and the experience, he just positioned himself in a way where he doesn't need to track back as much.
Yeah,
but
he just knows.
So yeah, he's very good. Yeah, he's very smart on this.
I want to start by saying that I am a huge Tim Stützle fan. Yes, there are some in Montreal. I thought he should have been drafted first overall all the way back in 2020. And I couldn't even, I could understand the Rangers passing over him.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe the Kings passed over him. And I really thought that the talk surrounding Stützle after his down year last season, when he had 70 points in 75 games, was overblown. I feel like Tim Stützle is much closer to the 90-point player we saw 2 years ago than the 70-point player we saw last year. With that being said, even with the rise of goals in the NHL, the pace that is currently ongoing right now, where we could see 1,500-point getter, I don't see it. And in the case of Tim Stützle, it is the injuries that worry me.
Mm-hmm.
And getting 100-point is tough. I think he will get very close to it, just
Marner's
like Jack Hughes did 2 years ago. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, which is a crazy thing.
I think he's going to get close to it. I'm so sorry. I'm the one who's going to be the Grinch today.
It's fine.
It's
fine. I was just going to say, I was this close to actually doing a different hot take. I'll mention it now. We don't have to go into it. Stützle's having a better career than Draisaitl did at his age.
Oh, no, hell no, you didn't go there. Oh, no, we can't. We don't. No, we ain't got time. We ain't got time for this.
Keep in mind, it's next year in Stützle's, keep in mind, Stützle started younger than Draisaitl did, I believe. It'd be next year where Stützle hit his crazy Draisaitl season.
Yeah, he won't hit them, though. No, hell no.
We don't have to talk about it. That's why I didn't bring it up, because I'm like, I feel like that is a bit crazy. I can't believe it. As a Sens fan, I have to bring up the idea.
We're up for another discussion on this one.
I'll come back. We'll talk about it.
Absolutely.
My man just burned the house, left, and watched it burn. Okay, Kevin Laramie. Are you uplifting or throwing under the bus?
For a rare opportunity, I'm actually uplifting, and I'm uplifting.
Go ahead.
Matvei Michkov, who, in my opinion, will be the 2024-2025 Calder Trophy winner, ahead of Macklin Celebrini, Lane Hudson, and Maxim Tsiplakov. Matvei Michkov, 27 points in 27 games so far this year, has not only been able to tolerate his coach and get back in the good graces.
One way to put it.
But he has negated the doubt of his attitude, negated the doubt that he's not a good teammate, negated all the negativity that was put on him when he was drafted. He's making teams now look back and maybe like certain teams that picked a defender looking back and regretting not picking this forward. To me, Matvei Michkov is not only doing something great, but he's also showing that he has even more space to develop. And in my opinion, will continue his rise, have a better season than Celebrini, and win that trophy when comes award night.
I want to congratulate Kev because he just did something very rare. He uplifted, but somehow threw somebody else under the bus while doing it. Kudos if you caught the reference right there to a certain team. Daph, is Kev right? Is Kev wrong? Can you get behind that take?
Oh, I'm a Macklin Celebrini fan out there for this trophy. He just shown like he's been back. He returned for a 12-game absence, and he's just been absolutely smoking. He led all rookies in goals with 7 points, with 12 and game-winning goal, and he was named the Rookie of the Month for November, which was already spectacular. And he seems to be just like growing and just being better and better each week. So I'm going and I'm rooting for Macklin Celebrini. And I feel, Kev, that when it comes down to the line, maybe Torts will have something to do with Michkov not winning that trophy.
Torts will torts before the end of the season. That is
Torts will torts.
Yeah, that's very
Have
probable.
you seen his reaction when he learned that he signed an autograph on a water bottle after
that was a
being
beauty.
I
kicked
saw
out
the
of
clip
game?
and I was like, Torts can't
He
be.
he
would be so angry about that.
And for people who haven't seen it, Torts, who was asked by a journalist, like, have you seen that? He's like, I have not seen what he did. What? And he was just like, oh man, this kid.
Yeah,
I thought he contained it well.
I cannot.
I thought he contained it well.
Yeah, but he was like, this kid, I cannot. He's giving me headaches.
Mike, we are tied right now. Are you going Michkov or are you behind Daph? Or maybe it's a heck of a rookie class. Maybe.
I was gonna say I looked into the stats, obviously for how the rookie players are doing, and not to mention as much as man in that game the Sens plays against Philly or the games either way. I've seen Michkov this season against the Sens in particular, and he is a great player, even for someone in his first year. But I'm also going to be knocking this down. I think this is Celebrini's. Award to lose. The one thing with Celebrini that we gotta remember is that he had that injury, And if you're looking at point production, just points per game, he's basically at the same level as Michkov. And
They're tied.
Yeah, effectively they're tied. Two big things in Celebrini's favor. He has full reins. He doesn't have to worry about torts. He can do whatever the hell he wants. And not to mention, he's doing whatever the hell he wants, like in a good way. It's not taking down his team. He's very good defensively. Holy, Celebrini in that game there was that one game against the Sens, against the Sharks, I think the more recent one. Celebrini was the best defenseman on the Sharks, like, by far.
Yeah.
Like, better than Cody Ceci, not a high bar. But, sorry, I have to throw Ceci under the bus while I'm on this. But like, he's been great. And as much as I hate to say this, I was one of the people who, when Jake Sanderson was making his amazing rookie year, obviously he wasn't putting up a crazy amount of stats, but how important he was to the Sens roster was my argument for him being, like, at least should be in Norris contention, and he wasn't, which is fair, usually for not Norris, sorry, Calder contention, and usually points matter in the same way Norris's do. I hate to admit it, I think Lane Hudson has a chance.
Wow!
Because
My man went there.
Yeah, because MSL is giving the reins the same way Celebrini does, and Lane Hudson is dynamic. If there's one thing, the downside, obviously, Lane Hudson's game can be, at least from my very basic understanding of watching the Canadiens, is like net front coverage. But even then, like, he's dynamic offensively, which is why he's by far the best defenseman rookie right now, if you look at the stats. And the one thing which I can definitely see being an argument either way is his plus minus. In this, I mentioned it earlier with the whole Stützle thing, where it's not always the best factor on how good a player actually is defensively. Sometimes,
and I agree with that.
It could just be unluckiness. It can just be like, oh, you hopped on the ice and then your team conceded, which I feel is a bit crazy. And if there was one thing I think Lane Hudson very clearly is, it's that transition defender that can also run the power play. Yeah. And so if you can keep that going and keep putting up points as like the best defenseman here, it's going to be like, oh, this is the best defenseman rookie right now. How can he compare to the best offensive rookie right now? Forward rookie right now. So I could totally see Lane Hudson like sneaking it out, where no one thinks like, oh, it's Celebrini or Michkov, yada. And then Lane Hudson has a sneaky good season, and because he's a defenseman putting up this many points, he gets that nod. But as much as he is in that race, and I wanted to bring him up, I just think Celebrini is the real deal. So, not that Michkov won't win it, I just trust Celebrini on the Sharks more than Michkov on the Flyers.
The only caveat I had to my point is it's a long season in the NHL. And over the years, the style of play from October all the way to the end of the season, beginning of April, differs. It changes. When February comes, things get tighter. And if you look at the type of goals and type of assists that Michkov, Celebrini, and even Lane Hudson get, only one of them, in my opinion, is replicable when things get tighter, when things get more physical, and when things get serious in February. And to me, that's Michkov. So that's also part of my thinking.
That's interesting because
I wouldn't really agree. For Celebrini's case, I can see Hudson's argument. I wouldn't agree with Celebrini.
Yeah. So three things. Number one, you're right about Hudson being in the mix, and also Dustin. It's the craziest rookie race in a very long time because there are 4 players that I could see win a Calder, and one of them will not even be nominated this year. Because yes, I'm adding a number 1 goalie on the team that could make the playoffs, and Dustin Wolf is absolutely crazy. Where I don't agree with you, Kev, with Matvei Michkov being the one who could keep the pace is the following reason. The Flyers, as of right now, is the only of those teams that is in the playoff mix. And Torts will ask of his player to shut things down, to play smarter hockey, to play more defensive down the stretch. Macklin Celebrini will not have that problem. He can go out and put 3 points in a night and not care if he's on the ice for 4 goals.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the same reason I can also see teams being better prepared to face Celebrini when it comes to February. So it's
the game plan would be
exactly
player
so
on Celebrini.
The same argument actually we'll see what the result is, but team playing more defensively could slow down Michkov, but I think we'll see also long term could slow down Celebrini and even Lane Hudson by the time this is all settled. But I think it's a good it's a good conversation to keep an eye on for the rest of the season.
It really is, because the funny thing is, when you made your initial statement, Kev, I 100% agreed with the arguments, with the scientific method, with teams regretting. I thought I would have gambled on Michkov high in the draft. I thought the talent was worth it. You know, it's one thing to gamble to win $100. You were gambling to win 100 million, in my humble opinion, of Matvei Michkov. So I agreed with the scientific method, not the result. I will only add one very, very, very last tiny argument for my man Macklin Celebrini, and is the following: is that a thing that I feel like is an advantage to Celebrini is we know how special he is, because there is another top dog rookie or expected top dog rookie on that team that is not producing, and that is Will Smith. And so we see how good he is compared to Will Smith, who was also a very awaited rookie. That is my concluding argument for Macklin Celebrini, who will be Kev the winner. And Kev is the heel in this argument. He's the bad guy in wrestling, in WWE.
Even when he's uplifting, he's against the grain.
Well, you talked about Will Smith, so I guess I'm the bad boy in this conversation.
And you know what? He's making me proud of wearing my winter hat when I'm going on the outside ring to play hockey. I love that winter hat, the San Jose Sharks winter hat, but I haven't wear it in a long time, and now I'm bringing it all back because Celebrini is making me proud of wearing it again.
I'm not gonna lie, San Jose to me is one of the best logo color scheme in the entire league.
It's clean.
But
it's clean.
I'm a kid of the '90s, so when Brian Hayward showed up with his helmet, I was like, I'm all for it, buddy. Jaws on the helmet, that was beautiful. But that's a long time ago. But the teal black, it's amazing.
It's good. It's good.
This segment was hot. The hot takes kept coming from the beginning to the end. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. We can follow you, of course, on Game Over Ottawa, Everything Sends. Catch Mike on social media too. And that will be it for us today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in on this episode of Hyperdrive Hockey. Of course, please, if you could consider subscribing to Game Over Network's YouTube channel, but also Game Over in your local market, from east to west, every Canadian market as a Game Over YouTube page. And of course, catch Hyperdrive Hockey on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. Drop a like, a comment, tell about us to your mom, your dog, your friends, and we will catch you on the next episode of Hyperdrive Hockey. My name is Mike Van Noot, alongside Daphne Malbeuf and Kevin Laramie. Thank you so much for tuning in. Talk to you next episode, guys.